Come read some stuff with me. It's a good time guaranteed, starring talented vocal performers. I can't promise it's PG, so kids don't listen, please. Come on down to Dale's Reading Corner. Welcome, everybody, to a rather weird episode of Dale's Reading Corner. Today, I'm joined by special guest, me. Hi, me, how are you doing? I'm doing great. Thanks for being on my show. No, thanks for being on my show. Always, you always do this, every time. I can't take you anywhere. Shut up and tell the people why it sounds like we're having a dissociative episode. Alright, fine. So, what you're gonna hear is the first time I read a fanfiction aloud on a Discord call. It's written by my friends Boss and Salsa. Boss also goes by Catler00. If you enjoyed today's episode, please consider giving them a tip. I will put the link to that down below. Now, the fic starts out strong, and by strong, I mean it starts out with a sex scene. However, as you will hear, I did not get that far into it before I gave up, so sorry to disappoint, but today's fic contains very little erotica. If you want that, check out the reading of A Puzzle Just For Me, which is a Sans Reader Mobtail fic that I did with Vade and Boss. That's pretty much just straight up porn for an hour. That's not on YouTube for obvious reasons. But if you're an adult, I'll put a link to that below. Seriously, no kids allowed on that one. No kids, stay away from that, no. Anyway, here's 40 minutes of me laughing at my own jokes. Chapter 1. You'd forgotten what it felt like to be held down like this. It wasn't anything grand or awful, nothing to cause nightmares or bad memories. In fact, you quite loved the feeling of him pressed against your back and smothering you into the mattress. His hands gripped so tightly around your wrist you feared they'd bruise. His pace was brutal and unforgiving. You could feel the heat of the sexual act. You could feel the passionate passion, and more of the passion, and the need for even more passion. With slamming and unbridled anticipation, you call... I thought I'd be able to do this, but I know my family's listening. So... Skipping ahead. Sex. Alright, now, to start the story simply, monsters had saved themselves the struggle the moment they hit topside. Not even months later, after having seen the state humans had run the surface into, they sequestered themselves into the corner of the world to live by themselves. A spot nestled into Canada, if you remember your geography correctly. I don't. Some 50 years ago, when they came topside, the country had offered a plot of vacant land as a sign of good faith, left to be what it was. No one went in, no one came out. That was the rule. You'd never really thought much about it until now. They'd closed off, monster kind, existing only on media and politics, for whatever reason the news decided to share with the common folk. You'd typically flip the channel when that happened, you bigot. But with nothing to do on this Saturday evening, you found yourself scrambling to find a piece of paper and scribble down the number floating on the screen. 1-800-MONSTER-DONG. You'd been bored, absurdly so. Not just in life, but in all aspects that would qualify as living. You had no social connections or family, you loser. You worked a dead-end job that couldn't pay your bills, and you had no schooling to speak of in your adult life. There was nothing here for you, nothing to do. It was only natural that you experienced your midlife crisis at the ripe age of 26, and enrolled in a sketchy government program, as you do. A handful of monsters would cross their borders, and a handful of humans would do the same. Said sketchy exchange program worked as follows. It's interesting having this come right after the scene in the beginning, so we can kind of see what the program leads to. Participants... Oh wait, I'm going to do this in a very government-y voice. Participants must fill out a questionnaire at the end of each week. Participants will be given tasks to do each week to strengthen cultural understanding. Participants will be given compensation and assistance financially. Participants will be given an allowance for each week. You get $2. Participants must refrain from violence or lawbreaking or interspecies coitus. Participants must keep up to date with their health care. Take care of those cavities before they become a problem. The list of conditions in the email went on, though those were some of the more important things you'd plucked from the debriefing. You found it odd that acting as a sort of exchange student gave so many benefits, but you weren't about to pass it up. You don't want to know too many things when you're signing up for a government program. You applied on impulse, and before the week was even up, you'd been put through a surprisingly small amount of hoops to be shipped off to the Monster Kingdom. A background check, a waiver, and a briefing later, you found yourself exiting a short plane ride in search of someone holding a sign with your name on it. Sucker! You were soon greeted by a stout monster with deer antlers. They waved to you jovially before gesturing for you to follow.
You'll be transported to your destination via communal coach alongside other program candidates,
they chirped. Despite them noticing right off the bat that you were not a talkative person, they persisted with the one-sided conversation anyway, and you stifled an indignant sigh.
The journey should only take around an hour total. A lot of the candidates are being assigned to addresses in the same town.
What voice should the reader have? Okay, southern drawl it is. Right, you drawled. Since it is drawl, we can do a southern drawl. Right, you drawled, keeping a fair distance from your escort. There was a niggling temptation, I love that word, there was a niggling temptation to grab the coat from your bag as you stepped out into the cold. But as soon as the thought came about, the deer monster was waving you over to the coach.
There we are,
the monster exclaimed. It made you cringe at how happy they seemed to be sending you off so quickly.
See ya, suckers!
But as they took your bag to load into the luggage compartment, you couldn't have escaped the sharp Canadian breeze any faster. The inside was lined with rows upon rows of seats, 2 each side, you noticed, and a lot of them had already been filled. Before you could give yourself a spare second to lament over the fact that you definitely have to share your personal space with someone, you squeeze yourself down the aisle and choose the most appealing seat to you, the one furthest away from anyone else. I hate people. You noted a few of the participants as you resigned yourself to the fate of being social, or rather, in the space that other people, unfortunately, occupy near you. They all seemed rather... well, you thought you'd see a variety of people, but somehow they all looked like you. Spooky. Worn down from the world with nothing going for them. Perhaps you were projecting, you think? But in the end, you had nothing to say for it, quietly letting it slip from your mind. You thought you were in the clear when someone plopped themselves into the seat next to you. You try to hide your internal screaming, shifting just a touch closer to the window to avoid accidentally touching them. He was short, head full of hair, like most human beings, like Chestnut, and voice far too loud for you to handle. Your gaze shifts to them briefly, where you make the fatal mistake of eye contact. He broke out into a wide grin, hand held out for you to shake. Hello, I'm Thomas. Got a name? His voice was chipper and thick, holding his excitement and nervousness for this whole endeavor. You offer your name simply as you took his hand. My name's Reader. You weren't touch-aversive, just socially awkward. This became more evident as you failed to talk and shake Thomas' hand at the same time. Are you excited? I know I am. I came all the way from... He goes on for a solid 5 minutes before realizing you hadn't said a single word. Man, he's a douche. You offered a panicked smile, nodding attentively, and trying to hide the way your shoulders stiffened. Man, for someone who hates contact with others, you were very quick to get into a government program that involved interacting with others. In that short amount of time, he decided not only you were his friend, but that he'd show you his plushie collection. Oh, that's nice. And started telling you about his hobbies and job. You tried to be attentive, but eventually you cut in. I'm not excited. What? To your first question, I'm not excited. I'm actually real nervous. You stood after the bus stopped, offering a tense smile to him as the driver called your name. It was really nice meeting y'all. Waving the new acquaintance goodbye, you jumped off the coach and waited for the driver to unpack your luggage. Turning around, you gaped at the sheer size of the residence. Your apartment hardly compared, and a pang of envy shot through you. The monsters you'd be living with must have been packing pretty heavy wallets. As you grabbed hold of your suitcase, you took some time to take in the scenery. A small lawn lined with small bushes adorned a gravel path that led to the house itself, and broke off into a street road where you were standing. The shrubbery was well trimmed, and the aggregate leveled nicely. You briefly entertained the thought that this had all been done in preparation for your arrival, because you're a total egomaniac. Just as you were beginning to feel somewhat full of yourself, a shrill voice, oh boy, a shrill voice cut through your entire conscious train of thought. The shock left you standing dumbly at the entrance of the familiar house. Oh good, it's Papyrus!
Ah, you must be our government exchange human!
The owner of the voice yelled, My name is Papyrus! Would you like me to take your bag? Looking up, the first thing you realized was how tall he was. Secondly was his choice of clothes, but you quickly pushed all judgment to the back of your mind. What they wore was none of your business, stupid as it was. He was being nice, and that's what counted. You looked on in awe, dumbstruck, to be meeting a monster in the flesh, or lack thereof. Ba-dum-tsh. The person in front of you was entirely made of bones. Lots and lots of bones. Oh! You glanced at your suitcase before handing it over to the skeleton. Sure, thank ye. Papyrus beamed at you, leaping forward to take it from you with a smile that could melt even the cruelest hearts. Nyah! You couldn't stop the hitch in your breath at the sight, eyes widening. A grin broke out on your features as he led you inside. The interior of the house was just as impressive as the outside. A loft oversaw the living room, branching off into 2 rooms on either side that rested below 4 more rooms on the ground floor. To the left were the stairs, to your right, the kitchen. Even so, the white walls laid bare of pictures or marks, the shelves empty, and the plastic sheeting over the furniture yet to be removed. Spooky. It was near empty in here, save for the packages and boxes littering the floor. Oh, so they just moved in too. You rose a brow, but didn't say a word about it. Papyrus was ever attentive, quickly seeming to pick up on this. He chimed in enthusiastically. We ended up moving in such a manner that frick! We ended up moving in much later than expected due to some setbacks, but we are here now. I am sure we will have everything unpacked by the end of the day if my lazy bones of a brother comes down to help. He chirped. That wasn't a chirp, was it? He chirped, though the playful irritation in his voice at the last part was blasted loudly, as if praying the brother would catch what he meant and come down. Well, I'm happy to help either way. I live here too now, so it's only fair. You really didn't want to, if you were honest, doing your best to hide the exhaustion in your sweet southern drawl. The plane ride had been rough, and the coach left you out of your element. You were more than ready to go hole up in whatever room was designated for you, and take some time to yourself. To unpack, to stare at the ceiling, to scroll Twitter, to maybe watch some porn. The day was winding to its end, and it would be late by the time you all finished. You needed to recharge your batteries, but social obligation dictated that you help. Nonsense! You look as though you've come out of the gutter. You'll rest, and that is that. You whipped around, heart leaping in your throat. You had to stifle a scream as your eyes locked on to deep violet lights in empty, cracked sockets, staring you down like you were dinner. His hands were folded neatly behind his back. How can you tell? They were behind his back. You can't tell. Maybe they were folded messily. Posture, so straight you wondered if there was a rod in his back. There is. He had surgery a while ago. He doesn't want to talk about it. He was almost as tall as Papyrus, which was a feat in itself. Despite the scowl on his face and the predatory air about him, you stayed locked firmly in place. That whole fight, fright, or fight, flight, or freeze response. Brother! Papyrus stammered nervously, hand coming to slink around your shoulder. This is our exchange human, not food! You gave your name, voice a hushed, restrained whisper. Y'all, my name is Reader. Boy, this was uncomfortable. Dr. Wingsdingaster, the monster hummed in response, quietly giving his name. That scowl softened just a tad as he carefully held out his hand for you. To you. For a moment, you openly stared. The palm was missing. There was a hole in his hand? You'd shaken someone's hand not 20 minutes prior. Why were you struggling to get over your prejudice and shake his hand? By some feat of mental willpower, You raised your hand to take his, dragging your eyes back up to meet his scrutinizing gaze. You forced a smile to your face, brows knitted together in obvious discomfort. You are a very bad actor. The monster raised a brow, looking thoroughly unamused. You do know how to shake hands, I presume? He probed with judging eye sockets. Yes? You shot back, only half sure. Then I would expect you to at least know what part of the hand to shake. The shorter skeleton spat, offended. Oh wow, you've pissed off Gaster already. Man, you're doomed. You stared at your hand again. You'd grabbed the inner part of his palm where the hole was. Wow, that was very rude of you. You prayed to whatever deity existed for a swift death. He jerked his hand away from yours and shook it vigorously. Ew, human, ugh. Grimacing harshly, he gave you a good eyeing up. He's like, cooties, ugh. He gave you a good eyeing up for what felt like forever before extending his arm again. I will give you the benefit of the doubt on this occasion. If you somehow manage to fail a second time, you will be given an appropriate reason to be sorely embarrassed. And they will not find your body for a long time. Well, you thought to yourself, that sounded like a threat. Regardless of his prickly first impression, you reached out your hand and firmly shook his, taking an abundant amount of time to get it right. You did. After an intense moment of eye contact and whatever else just happened, you shuffle backwards and place your, now very sweaty, hand in your trouser pocket. Boy, that must have been a pleasure to shake your hand. The skeleton in front of you seemed to take great pleasure in how nervous you were. Yes, And his down-the-nose staring continued long after your first encounter with Papyrus's brother. That's impressive considering he doesn't have a nose. Now that most of the formalities are out of the way, I suppose Papyrus will want to give you the grand tour. He chuckled wryly and sauntered towards the door. Oh, and to answer one of the burning questions I'm sure you have, I live separately, and as much as I disagree with the idea of this program we've all been tragically roped into, I will provide you with visits so that your time here is as enriching as possible. Stars know you'll need the mental stimulation, given the other two you've been matched up with. That made you bristle a bit, the idea that someone would openly insult their family like that. Papyrus didn't seem bothered by it, but even as a joke it had rubbed you the wrong way. You put on your best smile, following the tame stare down. So, what do you study, Doctor? Monster magic, and the effect of souls, or S-O-U-L-S. Riveting, I know, though far above your education level, I am sure. There was a hint of a challenge in his voice, as if he could see past your play-nice attitude and daring you to push. Thankfully, Papyrus cut in before you could dig your grave. My brother is considerably talented. I need to remember to step away from the microphone when I do Papyrus's voice. Last time I blew it out a few times. I always get loud when I do Papyrus. My brother is considerably talented. He built the core in the underground, saved countless monsters, and was very close to breaking the barrier before he fell. He fell? Alright, he's still around. Alright, the mystery intensifies. Oh, you say dumbly. That's not dumb enough. Oh, you say dumbly. You're not sure how to respond. You're a tad too caught off guard about the fact you got assigned to such an important person. Well, you were assigned to both of them, and another you hadn't met yet. But even so, it would make sense how he passed for the program, considering he's an asshole. I mean, that's really impressive and cool. I can knit, sort of. Their turn to stare at you. A knit? You can knit, Gaster echoed. Yes, sometimes. Sometimes, Papyrus repeated. That was not a very good Papyrus. Friggin' hell! Nyah! Sometimes? Papyrus repeated. I gotta go nyah a few times before I get Papyrus's voice. And even then I'm not doing it as well as I know I could be. I mean, I mean, I've never actually finished anything, but I know how to. So, I mean, technically I can. Indeed you can, Gaster interjected as he cracked a smile. He looked far more amused than you'd been prepared to see. There isn't any mocking tone or sarcasm. It's as if you'd said something particularly funny. You aren't sure how to take it, if you were honest. How did you how did you come to such a skill? My mammy taught me when I was a kid. Said if my hands were busy, I couldn't get mammy. So, fun story. One time, I live in California, not Southern. My Southern accent is really just... Icky would be very disappointed in me if she was listening. But I one time, for absolutely, just complete brain fart, yelled mammy at my mother for once, completely accidentally. Never done it since then, but she laughed really hard. My mama taught me when I was a kid. Said if my hands were busy, I couldn't be getting into other stuff that might get me in trouble. Did it work? Papyrus asked, head tilting to the side slightly. I think so. I never did much. One time I did skip school, but that was only to knit. Otherwise, I never really did anything Sorry, I started laughing during that line. Otherwise, I never really did anything rowdy. You think back on that. You're glad you never got in trouble, but the thought does make you a bit sad. Have you ever been very adventurous? I'm not a goody two-shoes type. I just was never really interested in anything that would get me in trouble. This seemed to get Gaster's attention as he hummed thoughtfully before speaking. I love doing Gaster's voice, by the way. It's so much fun. How do you mean? His tone is a bit careful, but seemed to be genuinely curious. Well, there was no incentive, I suppose is the right word. No reason for me to risk getting grounded or letting my grades fall. I didn't do too well grade-wise, but not bad either. This accent is slipping all over the place, and I am very sorry to anybody who's actually from either Texas or any sort of southern state. I have no specific... I know that the accent is different. There isn't just one southern accent, but I'm doing the best I can. Okay. You gave a crooked grin, gesturing to yourself. You got yourselves a painfully average human. Yup. By the book, even. Yup. Something about that made them both frown, but neither commented on it. Instead, Gaster gestured for you to sit on one of the couches while he took a seat on one of the armchairs. His legs crossed, leaning back to regard you as the conversation continued. Papyrus opted to simply stand, both hands on his hips as he listened carefully. You hadn't expected to be so open about yourself so fast, but it was a pleasant turn of events that left you realizing you were genuinely enjoying the conversation. I'm stepping back 3 feet from the microphone whenever I do Papyrus's voice. It seems it's about time to eat, Papyrus inquired quietly. Oh wait, crap! That wasn't quiet at all! Okay. You can tell I haven't read this fic ahead of time. At least I've read Songfell ahead of time when I record that. It seems it's about time to eat, Papyrus inquired quietly. That's not really an inquiry, is it? It seems it's about time to eat, Papyrus inquired quietly, as though he were trying to be gentle. What do you usually have for dinner? Yeah. I have eggs right about now at home. Get those chickens from my backyard, fresh eggs. It was nearing 8 p.m. in the Monster Kingdom, but apparently eggs were only to be eaten in the morning. What? Okay. You always lived by yourself, and never really thought much about how that sounded out loud until now. Screw you! I eat eggs at any time I want. Viva la egg, I say. Eat eggs whenever you want. Wake up at 3 a.m., fry an egg. Delicious. Regardless, you were happy for the change in conversation. Ah, yes! I'll have that prepared for... He pauses for a moment. You can see it clear as day the moment he registered what you said. I'm sorry. I must have misheard you. Did you say eggs? You freak! No, I misspoke. I meant to say scrambled eggs, just like my mama used to make on the ranch/southern place. You reply, sure, sorry, I'm laughing too much. Serious time. You reply, surely it's not that strange. It isn't that strange. Why do you think it's so strange? People eat eggs. People eat eggs all the time. Papyrus, that's rude. That's rude, my man. That's no way to treat a guest. You come to my house and you're a guest, I'll make you eggs anytime you want. And I won't make fun of you for it. Unusual, yes, but it's not the weirdest thing ever. Maybe he thought you meant raw eggs? Because that's a thing? Do you, often have scrambled eggs for dinner? He looked very, very concerned for you. He's considering calling a therapist and getting you professional help. He's worried. This is about to have an intervention on your egg problem. Well, nah. What do Southern people say? Well, no. He visibly relaxes, and you realize he finds you eating eggs for dinner strange in itself. You grin, quietly picking the conversation back up before he skitters off. Sometimes I have them over easy, or even hard-boiled. Any cooked eggs, really. Truly, you, the reader, are a master of conversation. Yeah, this is 300 IQ conversation happening right here. Big brain time. You swear to the stars you've never seen such a look of betrayal before. His expression just looks more disapproving by the second, the longer you grin. You didn't think he was actually upset or displeased. You got the vibe it was entirely playful. When you glance over, Gaster is sharing a look of disgust. But the small quirk of his mouth and the way his shoulders shook almost seemed as if he were barely containing his laughter. You are anything but ordinary. He finally grumbles. No, that wasn't a grumble, was it? You are anything but ordinary. He finally grumbles, shaking his head as the scowl cracks and he bursts into a smile. The skeleton tried to hide it behind his hand to little success, because there's a hole in his hand, simply admitting defeat. I cannot wait to see what Sans thinks of you. You missed the first comment, mind locking onto the new name. Sans? Ah, yes, the middle brother, he explains, sighing almost as though there was some heavy truth in the words he spoke. Papyrus is the youngest. I, obviously, am the eldest. Sans is the middle child. He is no doubt lurking in the house somewhere, or napping. I know because Salsa and Vlad told me that is not what he's doing, unless you guys decided to change that. You felt a twinge of disappointment at having not met him yet, though you were also glad. You were exhausted, excessively so, and another person would leave you more tired than before. You're sure you'd run into him tomorrow during breakfast or something, so you shrugged it off. Does he have social anxiety? I do not think so, though he no doubt chose to be... Frick! I do not think so, though he no doubt chose to not be present on purpose. He heaved a heavy sigh, shoulders dropping. Sans... That wasn't a very Gaster-like sigh. That's a better one. Sans was none too pleased to have been roped into this program. He... Your birds... Damn it, I'm smiling too much. Yeah, pull it together! Pull it together! Okay, Your brows furrowed as your gaze dropped to the floor, the wheels in your head turning. But why did he sign up? God, this accent is getting worse by the minute. He didn't. I did. However, I am supposed to be living here. I owed the king a favor of sorts, and as a result, we're in this position. I thumped the microphone with my phone just then, so I need to re-record that. I owed the king, let's say, favor. And as a result, we're in this position. Quite the situation, no? Though, I don't imagine you'd be dumb enough to tell, of course. Is that a threat? You asked through clenched teeth. I'm gonna say that through clenched teeth. Is that a threat? You asked through clenched teeth. Not at all. I'm getting way too high-pitched with Gaster. He's much lower-pitched. Not at all, he assured, helping you relax. His voice is anything but relaxing. Still, it wasn't sitting right with you. Papyrus returns... Papyrus left? I wasn't even paying attention to what I wasn't paying attention to what I was reading, honestly. Okay, I missed that part. No, that's not true. I am paying attention to what I'm reading. I somehow missed that he left. Okay. Papyrus returned surprisingly soon, not even 5 minutes later, with a plate of eggs and toast. You thought that was cheese on them, and you felt your stomach beg. He must have seen the eagerness in your eyes, and swiftly passed the plate to you with a happy giggle. Oh boy. I hope they're up to your human standards. You don't hesitate in any sense, diving in like a starving animal, swiftly forking some of the eggs to slide on top of the toast and shovel into your mouth with your bare hands. You gave a hearty giggle as you chewed, covering your mouth. Sorry, I made myself laugh. Okay, serious. Very serious, very professional. Covering your mouth with your hand. Papyrus is satisfied with that. If the approving way he nodded his head is any... Damn it. Papyrus is satisfied with that, if the approving way he nodded his head is any indication. This just made Gaster laugh a bit harder. That was not a Gaster laugh. Oh boy, I need to redo that one. Though it quickly died down after you scarfed down the eggs and toast in record time, leaving none for him. Rude! Though, now you were exhausted. Your eyelids felt heavy, and you could feel your breathing slow down as you prepared to go into hibernation. It wasn't that late, but the sleeping pills that he put in the eggs were having... Okay, it wasn't that late, but even so, you felt ready to pass out at any second. Still, you tried to carry on the conversation, going on to more interesting topics like other ways to cook eggs, rubbing your eyes tiredly. Thank you for the meal, Papyrus, you muttered, shifting on the couch to get more comfortable. When had the plastic been taken off? Okay, there's plastic on it. I missed that part too. Okay, do you cook for a living? What is this? They're living in like Better Homes and Gardens magazine in the 50s? Gotta keep that plastic on so that, you know, all the pets don't get fur on the couch. You heard Gaster chuckle. Papyrus puffed his chest out proudly. No, but I could. Damn it! No, but I could. Oh man, why is this so hard? No. Yeah. No, but I could be if I wanted to. I work for the guard with my best friend. You hear the excitement in his voice, like he was whisked away by happy memories just at the mention. Papyrus excels as a guardsman. He is second in command, directly under Undine, who is known for a fierce temper. Gaster noted idly. For all his dickery earlier, you are happy to see that even he couldn't resist the need to egg, it's a pun, on his youngest brother's boasting. Though he could easily be captain if he chose. That's so cool. I bet you keep a lot of people safe. Make sure you watch my back for me. You joked. You feel your eyes slip closed as Papyrus talks about his work. You make sure to pay attention. There was something about Papyrus that just demanded your attention, even as you dozed off. This is Gaster talking, or is this Papyrus talking? It's actually Toriel! She suddenly pops up. It's Papyrus talking. Alright, moving away from the microphone again. Yeah. I have to wake up very early, but I don't sleep very much to begin with. Yeah. I have to keep going nah to get in the mood of Papyrus. God, I've done a better Papyrus voice before. I don't know why it's so hard for me right now. When I get to work, there is a lot of paperwork, though. I enjoy... frick! When I get to work, there's a lot of paperwork, though I enjoy sorting them. God, pull yourself together, Dale! Pull yourself together! When I get to work, there's a lot of paperwork, though I enjoy sorting them. And on my patrols, I get to say hello to everyone, which is my favorite part of the day. I am sad when I have to log reports for when people call us, but I am glad I can listen to them and help them. I love my job very much. Nyah! Papyrus was too good for this hellscape known as Canada. That's amazing, Papyrus. I wish there were more people like you in the world. You distantly hear what you think is Gaster standing up, then the clicking of lights, and something being set over you. It's a bag over your head. You're being kidnapped. Had they turned off the lights and given you a blanket? That was sweet of them. Can you tell me more? Sing me a bedtime song? Of course, human. His voice had dropped to a softer tone, gentle and calm. It was a nice vibe. Sometimes, if I show up early enough, I get to see the receptionist. She's a small bunny monster with 2 children. Oftentimes, she has coffee prepared for most of the workers that day, but I like to be able to return the favor to her at times. Undine is cranky regardless of when she comes in, but always gives us a smile. His voice grew fainter and fainter as he talked. Was he trailing off, or were you dozing off? You waited a moment in comfortable silence before sleep pulled you under like a riptide. It felt like a split second to you, having not felt time pass while you slept. It was a welcomed feeling, though you knew quickly that it had to have been the middle of the night. When you wake up, I guess. You sluggishly sat up and tried to force the sleepiness away as you rubbed your eyes. The kitchen light had been left on so you could see in the dim light. You looked around, noting your bags had been moved. Your earlier suspicions had been confirmed. The fluffy blanket that had been placed over you was a welcomed warmth. Even so, it felt odd to have crashed on the couch so out in the open and vulnerable. Never sleep in the open, that's when the predators can get you. You felt safe and welcomed, but you'd always been the type to prefer privacy when you slept. You bring yourself to your feet, glancing around. One of these rooms had to be yours, but knocking would probably wake them. You debate in your head what would be the best option in this case. Should you just tough it out and sleep on the couch instead? Yes! Yes, that's what you should do! That's clearly what you should do! You're not sure you can get back to sleep like that, though. You decide it's best to search for your room, and begin quietly tiptoeing through the house. That is a terrible, terrible idea! You examine each door, and put your ear against the wood to listen for sounds of Papyrus. He snores like, "Nyah, nyah, nyah." And Gaster snores... Well, Gaster isn't sleeping here, I guess. He lives elsewhere. If Gaster were sleeping here, you would hear him snoring like, "Ooh, ooh." You don't hear anything, so you open the door as slowly and quietly as you can, in case you're wrong. You sigh when you see that it was a closet. Go sleep in the closet. Channel your inner Harry Potter. You go to the next door and listen a bit longer this time, and find silence once more. Another very quiet closet. You determine there's probably no sleeping person behind that door, so you quietly open it and find a bathroom this time. Reader's an idiot. Skeletons have no flesh. They're not going to make snoring noises because there's nothing getting in the way of their air tract. They are going around their host's house in the middle of the night, just hoping that they don't walk in on them. Oh boy. Oh no, it's this part, isn't it? It's the dreaded part. Alright. The next room is the same process, and then the next. One of the rooms is just completely empty, save for a box in the corner. You decide that's none of your business, not realizing that the box is where you're meant to sleep, and shut the door behind you. The briefing said furniture would be prepared for you, so that couldn't be your room. Unless... yeah. You have more luck with the next room. When you lay your ear against the door, you hear the faint sounds of someone breathing behind it, like directly behind it, like they're listening for you on the other side of the door. It must be Papyrus. You're glad you located his room. You'd hate to wake him. He said he didn't sleep much and had to get up early. He'd been so welcoming that it warmed your heart. Your cold, cold, dead southern heart. Oh boy, I'm reading ahead! Oh boy, am I reading ahead! Oh boy, and how am I reading ahead? Alright. That's gonna be fun to say in a southern accent. You smile softly, making your way to the last 2 rooms. You don't bother to listen for any sign of noise, simply opening the door as silently as you can and walking in. You freeze in your steps the moment you look inside, however, eyes going wide in terror. This was not your room. There was someone inside and awake, staring straight at you. In the split second, you remembered that Gaster had told you there was another here. Frick! In a split second, you remember that Gaster had told you there was another here. Sans, the middle child. Your jaw drops at the sight before you. A skeleton in no shirt, with his pants pulled down to show... God, I don't want to say this line. Okay, alright. Family, are you home? Family, are you within earshot? Damn it! Don't listen for a moment. Close your beautiful young ears. Oh, this is gonna be in a southern accent too, so Elizabeth. What the fuck is wrong with your dick? Alright, that's the only take. I'm not saying that line again. Alright. Okay.